Alright, so the other day I was having lunch with a friend, let's call her Shalan, and she was telling me that she felt a little bit overwhelmed in general because she wanted to start on game development but she didn't know where to start or what to focus on first. So we went back and forth talking about how the industry is right now, how I started on game development back in 2022, how I will approach it differently if I were starting today, blah blah blah. And we ended up spending 2 freaking hours talking about pretty much a step-by-step guide of starting on game development today. And since she told me that the conversation really helped her, I thought to myself, why don't I make a video as well? Because this is something people ask me a lot, even if I don't have any idea of what I'm talking about, which is pretty much all the time. I think it's a good thing for a video, so I hope this is helpful for you somehow. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Danny and I'm an engineer turned game programmer. And in this channel I'll help other game developers deal with everything about their job which actually has nothing to do with making video games. Like finding work-life balance, beating imposter syndrome, or simply not burning out. And I know how difficult it is to start on game development right now. Not only because the market is so saturated, we all have read articles like Le Monde's and we know how bad the situation is, let's not dwell too much on that. But because emotionally and intellectually it's a lot to take in all at once. If you want to learn video games, you need to know your way on programming a little bit, you need to know how to use either Unity or Unreal Engine, you also need to understand the game development process pipeline, then you need to know how to find a job, etc, etc. I know it's a lot to take in. I remember when I started, I got overwhelmed a lot and I came from a programming background, so I didn't need to learn how to program. And I chose Unity, which is a pretty simple engine to start with. And even in that case, I was so overwhelmed because there was so much to learn. And I didn't know even what to specialize on or even if I should specialize on something. But the thing I think blocks us the most on game development is kind of this toxic culture we have around game development, so to speak. Like I have worked with people who act like we are surgeons or architects and we are just making video games for goddamn sake. Like we don't need to take our job too seriously because there's no point on doing that. Like if we fail to ship a game, the only 2 things that are gonna happen is that people can't play it, which is sad, but it's not the end of the world, and that people who are already rich are gonna be less rich. So yeah, there's no point on worrying too much about it. So I think we shouldn't feel this pressure of actually making it as a game developer, because you can always make games on the side and that's completely fine and even more enjoyable than working on a company, let me tell you. But coming back to my conversation with my friend Shalan, I think she was struggling mostly with these things. And if I were talking with you, for example, right now, exactly the same, over a coffee or a lunch or something like that, I think this is the advice I will give you. Tackling first the question of whether to specialize or learn a little bit of everything, I feel like the thing that has helped me a lot is to kind of pursue a T-shaped knowledge. This is a concept extracted for software engineer, I think it came up from there, I don't know, I'm not sure, but it basically says that you should be able to know a lot about a discipline and then know a little bit about disciplines which are near to that one. And this is mainly because when you work on a collaborative team, like we do in video games, it's very useful to have someone who is very good at one thing, but also knows a little bit about other disciplines so that he can communicate better with their teammates. Let's say, for example, that you are like me, you are a programmer and you are specialized on gameplay programming, so you know your way about physics, mathematics, vectors, etc, etc. You know how to implement mechanics, UI, engine, so on and so forth. This will mean that your vertical axis on your T-shaped knowledge is gameplay programming. But then it will be very useful to know a little bit about disciplines near to gameplay programming like tech art, animations, or even environment a little bit, so that you can communicate clearly with your teammates when you are working together. For example, the last mechanic I worked on my last company involved a lot of work with the design and the tech art teams, and the fact that I could understand what a material is, for instance, or how the material layering system works in Unreal Engine, or having an eye for game fields and accessibility, really made the whole thing much more easier for all of the team, because we didn't have to explain concept to each other, because if I were talking with the technical artist and he knew what a timer or a lambda or a delegate is, or I know what a shader or a material is, it's so much easier to communicate with one another, even if we don't know the intricacies or every little thing that we are talking about. So yeah, my advice for you would be to just pick a discipline, because you cannot do every discipline on a video game, and then try to know a little bit about disciplines around it. If, for example, you want to be an animator, you can learn a lot about animation, a little bit about gameplay, and a little bit about environment, because you're going to work a lot with people on those teams. By the way, if you like concepts like this one about T-shaped knowledge, I think you will like my newsletter. It's called The Checkpoint and it's basically a place in which every Monday I will send you a concept similar to this one, I will explain it a little bit to you, and I will give you actionable advice to apply it right now on your life. And the best thing is that it's completely free, you just need to deal with me talking to you every Monday. So yeah, there's a link in the description below, it's completely free and you can unsubscribe at any time. Okay, so another thing that my friend told me is like, the market is so saturated that I need to stand out, right? I need to differentiate myself from the rest, which I think is reasonable. You need to do that. But the thing is like, most people, including myself, think of someone who stands out as someone who is the best, right? Like for example, let's imagine that you are a recruiter on your company and you need to look at 10 candidates for the next position. And now imagine that all those people are placed in a row. You probably remember the one which is the best at programming or who is the best good looking or something like that. But if one of them were wearing a penguin suit, you probably remember that person also, right? And I'm not saying that you should wear penguin suits for interviews. And if that's your thing, that's okay. No shame here. But I'm saying like there is an easier way to stand out in the crowd than to be in the best, which is to be different. And what I was saying to my friend is like, you don't need to be weird in the bad sense of the word, so to speak, but you need to find your unfair advantage, something that makes you special among the rest, and something which is very difficult for other people to replicate, and really leverage that. Because I think like being the best is freaking hard. There's always one person who is working like 16 hours a day on the thing you are trying to be the best at, who is gonna be much better than you in the future. I can tell you that for sure. But if, for example, I don't know, you like music a lot, maybe if you work on a CV or a cover letter which is actually a song, that's something which is gonna stand out in the crowd. Or if you're an artist and you make your own CV a complete drawing or even an infinite scrolling drawing like those on the YouTube videos, you're probably gonna stand out too. In my case, for example, when I apply to companies, I never upload a CV and a cover letter. I always make a video like this one and I edit it a little bit, add some music, sound effects, etc. because I try to leverage my identity and my work as a creator to get a job as a programmer. Because usually programmers just send like their GitHub, their website, or even, I don't know, a CV or cover letter. But if I get a recruiter to watch my video like this one, I'm probably gonna stand out, even if I'm not the best, which I'm not. So yeah, in the case of my friend, she really likes drawing. She's very good at drawing. So what she's trying to do is create personalized CVs and cover letters for every company that she applied to. Because she already drew every single day as a hobby, so she might as well do it for something helpful for their career. So what I will advise you is to really think of what is your unfair advantage. Maybe you are a very emotional, intelligent person, or maybe you are very extrovert, or maybe you know magic tricks and you can, I don't know, do a magic trick on the interview or something to impress the recruiter. I don't know, that's up to you. And the nice thing about this is that you can have a little bit more of fun on the process, because as I have mentioned before, I feel like we take game development too seriously for the craft that it is. Like, we are just making fucking video games, and yeah, we fulfill a social role and we entertain people, we help people. I have been over depression thanks to video games, but again, we are not surgeons or pilots or architects or whatnot. Like, we don't have the pressure of knowing that someone is gonna die if we don't complete our tasks. So what I usually advise people, and what I need to constantly remind myself every goddamn day, is to keep my feet on the ground and know that my work is important, but it's not the end of the world if I don't complete it or do it on time or do it good enough. And I get it, like, I know how important it is to fulfill your passion on game development for some people. I definitely have felt this way in the past, but I think it's very helpful to base your identity and your confidence on something else. Like, I recently read a book about this. I think it was called Love Life from Matthew Hussey, which is a really nice guy. You should check out his channel. And he was talking in a chapter about a concept called identity matrix. He basically said that we all have a matrix with little squares in it, which represents all the things that we gain confidence from in our life. For example, when I drew mine, I drew things like my music ability, my emotional intelligence, my job as a creator, the fact that I can program, my family, friends, etc. But he was making the point that beneath this layer of identity, which only represents things in the real world, we need a deeper layer of confidence, which he calls core confidence, I think. And this is basically the fact that you are not basing your identity or confidence on something external, like making video games, for example, or being a game developer, or managing to get into game development, but you are basing it on the resourcefulness you have to manage any situation that life throws at you, if that makes sense. For example, a really common scenario we all find ourselves on from time to time is like, the industry is so saturated and so messed up. Like, we sometimes think that we are not good enough for it, if that makes sense. Like, I have thought sometimes, if I don't make it as a game developer, who am I? Like, I have based all my life on the fact that I love video games. I play video games, I make video games, I teach other people how to handle things on game development, and I have even teach game development itself on my course, etc. But recently I have tried to stop identifying myself so much on the game development thing specifically, and more on the fact that I'm a, resourceful person, empathic guy, I guess, kind of happy in general, complacent with anything in my life really. So yeah, whenever I'm talking with someone who is worried about whether or not they are gonna make it on game development, I usually try to redirect their thoughts onto thinking like, what if you don't make it? Like, you still have some things which make you, which are not based on game development. For example, if you were to write right now in the comment section down below, what are your 5 sources of confidence in your life? Which one would it be? Would it be game development, exercise, your relationships? How many of those are related to how you think or how you feel or how you act? Because those things are never gonna be taken from you. Even if the whole video game industry goes to shit, if you have confidence that you are a resourceful person and can find enjoyment on simply creating things for other people, which is what basically game development is all about, maybe you don't have that much pressure on actually making it in video game development. I think this is all over the place, but yeah, usually when we think about these things, and if I were having a conversation with you right now, it will probably look like this and not the scripted point-by-point conversation I usually do on my other videos. So yeah, I hope it's helpful that I talk more from the heart than from the brain here. If you buy this idea of the core confidence thing, I think it's very helpful to have alternative paths for your life. Like, let's say, for example, that you want to be an animator on game development, and you start building your T-shaped knowledge and learning about the environment, gameplay programming, etc. You also know what is your unfair advantage. Maybe you are also a musician, so you are using that to get a job. But then you start seeing like you are getting nowhere on game development, and you start not even enjoying that anymore. It's like, it will be so nice to know that you can do other things apart from game development. Maybe you can get into marketing, or you can try to do animated movies. I don't know much about this industry, but yeah, I have some friends animators who are doing that. But even having a completely different path, let's say that you also like, web development for some reason. That's a really robust industry which is probably not going to shit in the recent years. So having the confidence, the core confidence to know that you are a person who can enjoy something creative, because web development is creative in some way, maybe you don't feel that pressure to really make it as a game developer, as an animator game developer, because you know that you can change plan A from plan B, or even plan C, D, E, F, so on and so forth. And it's not like you are taking plan B, it's that plan B is the new plan A, if that makes sense. Like, you are not failing at plan A, you are just switching to another plan A. Because at the end of the day, the only 2 things that you control in your life is your thoughts and your actions. And the fact that the game development industry is going to shit because some rich guys decide that it's okay to lay off a complete company in one day, that's up to them and not up to you. And finding yourself in this situation, I think it's not your fault, but it's still your responsibility. Like, if you were hit by a car, it wouldn't be your fault, probably, I guess, but it will surely be your responsibility. Like, it is not the driver's responsibility to do rehab or get a surgery, etc. You can always sue the driver or forgive the driver or whatever you want, but if you focus too much on who's to blame, you can lose track of who's responsible for fixing the situation. And I think with game development is exactly the same. If you're finding yourself really nagging the situation of the industry and blaming the employees or the situation or the economy or the capitalistic system, etc., etc., I think you are right, they are to blame, but what's the point of just complaining if you are not gonna work on something to get better? Like, if you are here, you probably love video games, you are a very resourceful person, you're probably very good looking, so yeah, congrats on that. And I know that you can handle this situation, but maybe you need to put less pressure on yourself, because yeah, we're just making video games and no one cares really. And you shouldn't care too much about it, it's just fun, it's beautiful to make games, we don't earn much money, but yeah, that's okay. So yeah, hopefully this video wasn't too much all over the place. I wanted to give it more of a natural pace because yeah, I had this conversation with my friend and I wanted to replicate it on this video. So yeah, if you like this kind of videos with a more of a natural pace to it, so to speak, please leave a comment down below so that I can know that you like it. And if all this sounds interesting to you, yeah, you can always check out my Crunch video series, which I think is pretty related to all the problems that we talk about here. And I'm pretty honest on those videos too. So yeah, hopefully they are helpful for you too. Thank you so much for watching and I will see you very